Hey everyone, my name is Dave. Welcome to the NTDRacing Speed Shop. My friends at Northern Tools asked me if I wanted to test out their new Klutch MIG Welder, and I was like, heck yeah, I do. I've had this project I've wanted to do for a while where I'm gonna build a heater that uses old engine oil, and I figured this would be the perfect time to do that. So let's go ahead and check out what's inside the box. I'll show you the parts I'm gonna use to build this heater. Let's go ahead and get to it. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what we get with this Klutch MIG Welder. We'll kind of talk about some of the buttons here on the front in a second. On the back there is a switch, and you also see that I have my gas going to my argon and CO2 mix. I got a feeling the CO2 would probably work also, but they do call for the 75-25 mix. It comes with this, the connections as far as power goes. It goes to a NEMA 6-50, which I think is a 50 amp connection, and I use that on all of my stuff in my shop, whether it's a compressor or a welder. And they also give you this cord right here, which allows you to use your regular, 115, 110, whatever you want to call it, that comes out of your wall also. So you can use either one of those. The 230 generally for welder is a little bit better. Nice instruction manual. They give you some consumables like different size tips depending what kind of wire you're using, and then these rollers here, which is used inside of the gun. Now the gun, interesting that they did not give any instructions, I think, to find how to put the gun together. But it wasn't too difficult. What I did is I kind of fed the wire in first, and then I fed the spool over the top of this nut right here, which both the nuts turn opposite direction. They're not righty-tighty, they're lefty-tighty. And then I fed it through. I took the tip off and was able to basically feed the wire through like you would any normal MIG welder, except for now the spool is in the gun. And a big benefit of that is the fact that the spool isn't inside here, but you can also weld with aluminum. So this is full up ready to do aluminum, stainless steel, regular steel, you name it. So that's pretty cool. I've never done aluminum, and I will look forward to doing it. I just don't have any aluminum wire. I just happen to have a spool of 0.03 Hobart wire. They don't give you any wire, so you need to make sure you get your own. And here's a 3-pounder there that I put inside there. Before we get to work on making the heater, I wanted to run just a couple test beads. I got a couple pieces of metal over here just to make sure I have the settings dialed in. As far as the control panel, it was really easy to use. There is this SYN button. You can either turn it on or you could turn it off. If you have it on, and all you're going to do is you're going to go over here and set the wire size you're using. You're going to scroll to the thickness that you're going to use, whether it's, in this case it'd be 10 gauge, and then the material I have steel, but you see you can scroll through aluminum, steel, or stainless steel, and those kinds of things. If you turn this switch off, and then now what you got to do is come over to the table that they have. In this case, we're doing mild steel. We got a 0.03 wire, 10 gauge, and we're going to do 19.5 volts at a speed of 280. And so now you would just come over here and you'd set all that stuff up 280. You hit this button right here, you get 19.5 volts, and then now you're all ready to start welding. All right, a little bit of a learning curve, but I feel like I'm getting used to it. This is some 1/8 inch diamond plate. I think it went down pretty nicely. I put that weld just about anywhere. And then this is a piece of 3/16 to a piece of 1/4. And it looks all right. Okay, also, I think we're ready to make a heater. Let's take a look at the parts I'm gonna use. So I got this piece of 4" by 4" square. I'm gonna use, this is a 1.5 inch round tube. I'm gonna have this blower kind of blowing air through the tube into here. And then to hold the oil, I'm gonna use this old acetone can, which I've washed out with water, so it's good. It's basically going to feed through some of these little bits, and then this thing right here will basically feed the oil into the burner. But first we got to cut out some parts on the plasma table, and then we'll start welding them together and see if we make this thing work. All right, as we get to making this burner, I'm going to make one part, and I'm going to show you how I do it on Fusion 360. I need to make the flange for this blower right here. And so that's a pretty complicated piece to make, but I'm going to show you how easy it is to make it on Fusion 360. And then we're going to cut it out on our plasma table and then weld it with the Klutch welder. So here we go. Really quick, I kind of talk through these things as I do them. I have a lot of videos where I use this, but we're going to go ahead and draw on this X and Y plane. I'm going to hit the C key on my computer to basically make a circle that is 1.5 inches in diameter. I hit the C key again, and I'm going to make another circle that is 2.3 inches in diameter, and that's basically going to represent that whole flange right there. Now I got to make the holes, and this is the tricky part here, is I got to figure out how I represent those holes. I'm going to actually do some math over here, just because this is the only way I figured out how to do this. Is the holes are 1.62 inches from center to center from each other. So I'm going to hit the hotkey L, which brings up a line, and hotkey X, which turns this into construction lines. And then over here, I'm just going to make a line at 1.62 inches. And what I'm basically doing is trying to make a triangle. I'm going to hit the line L key again to make another line. And then once again, this is going to be 1.62 inches, and then the degrees are going to be 60 degrees. So 180 minus 60 is going to be 120. It's going to be so it's a 60-degree triangle all the way around, and then enter, and then I'm going to basically finish that off with another line, and that represents those three holes that we're going to be putting on this thing. I just kind of need to flesh out what the radius is from the center of this if we had that. So what I'm going to do is draw two more lines. I'm going to hit the hotkey L, and you see as I roll my cursor over here, it snaps to that triangle. That tells me I found the center of that line. If I take it to this point right here, then that cuts those triangles in half. If I do that again, and I find the center of that one, and I go to here, now I found the dead center of that triangle. Now if I click the C key again, or hotkey C, to bring up circle, I'm going to draw a circle until it touches the basically the tip of that triangle, and then now I have a circle there. And if I go hotkey L again, I go from the center to the side. That tells me that the radius that I need on the other piece is going to be 0.935. So let's write down 0.935. That's the number I need. So I'm going to go back over here, and then now I'm going to say create a polygon inscribed, and I'm going to start it from the center. And again, that radius was 0.935, and it's a three-sided polygon, otherwise known as a triangle. And then there is our triangle. And then now all I need to do is figure out the size of these holes that we're going to cut using my micrometer here. Let's just call them hotkey C again. We'll go, I'm going to hit, see, there's a dashed line. The difference between the dashed line and the non-dashed line are basically these construction lines over here. Is the dashed line will not cut on the plasma table. No tool path will be made for that, but the hard lines, a tool path will be made for that. So I'm going to say 0.3. That's too big. Let's go 0.25. Enter. Center. 0.25. Enter. And 0.25. And then there's that part. I hit hotkey E, or the E key on my keyboard, select that part, 0.125 thickness, and then now you can kind of see how quickly I was able to make that flange on here. Now I just drop it in the plasma table, I cut it, but I got a couple other pieces I need to make, but I'm going to do that at like 100 times speed, so you don't have to sit there and watch me do a whole bunch of nerdy CAD stuff. All right, I have tons of videos that show how I use Fusion 360 with this Langmuir Systems Crossfire XR and the Pro. You can check that out in the playlist on my channel. And if you would like one of these tables, then check out the link in the description below and code NTDRacing at checkout. We'll save you $100 on one of these tables. There are few tools in your shop that I think will up your fabrication game more than a plasma table. Okay, the next step is to face off the chimney. Let's weld that on. Let's go ahead and get this air intake tube prepped and weld on the flange. All right, this is starting to look pretty good, and I'm learning some stuff as I go. I'm not the greatest MIG welder in the world, but I'm learning, and I'm starting to really like this machine. I realize that all of the settings for the MIG welding, all the different materials, are right there on the side of the machine, which is nice, so you don't have to pull the book out every time you try to do a setting. And then there was something really important I learned about the gun, and let me show you. So I don't know if you could tell, but when I was welding, it was making like a zzz, zzz, zzz noise as opposed to that constant sizzling bacon sound, that zzz kind of thing as I was welding. And what I found is that if I kind of start taking this thing apart, what was happening is that this nut, as this thing was turning, it was actually tightening this nut down and then squeezing in on the spool. I'm not sure if I got the right size spool. You can tell it's an old one. It's kind of cracked back in there. But what was happening is it's creating too much resistance for this thing to pull the wire through. So what I did is I went inside here and I just put, if you can see in there, I put one little small washer. This is like a 1/4 inch or something like that. So one small washer in there just to space it out a little bit. And then now, man, it is just welding awesome. And you can kind of see as I zoom in here on the results of how the welds are looking now. I'm really liking it. I think these welds are looking pretty good. I think it's sounding a lot better, a lot more consistent. So starting to become one of my favorite MIG welders. This is pretty cool. All right, now is where we really start to Frankenstein some bits together. Just a little simple valve to control the flow of the oil. I got no idea where I found this. This I pulled off of a Turbo 400. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this. I'm gonna drill a hole in the acetone bottle. This will go in from the top. This will go in from the bottom. It's got a little rubber gasket there. That'll pinch it down inside the acetone bottle. This I got out of an AN6 kit that I had, and I'm gonna put that on there, tighten that down, and then I will connect the two with a rubber hose, and then that will drop oil right into the funnel that goes into the burner. All right, to get this thing done, let's figure out a way to mount this bottle right about here so it can drip right into that homemade funnel. Man, what a fun build this was, and I learned some things along the way. First off, as I weld this thing together, I would make sure that this weld all the way around is completely waterproof, because it did start leaking out some oil here, and I try to squirt some weld in there, hopefully to block that off. We'll see how that ends up working. And the other thing is, as to light this thing off, what you might do is maybe put a little bit of oil down there first by looking down inside. You can kind of see as the oil's going in there, and then put some pieces of wood in there, get a fire going with that wood, because you really want this whole place to be just almost red hot by the time you start flowing oil in, because the oil goes down this tube, it starts dripping into the combustion chamber, if you will, which should be red hot. It starts basically, you know, making the oil hit a hot plate, starts spattering all over the place, almost starts boiling, if you will. And then that, with the air getting kind of pumped in from this blower, just creates a huge inferno. So all these parts, I thought, you know, this is just spare stuff I had, you know, spare scrap metal I had on my laying mirror systems, Crossfire XR, and this was actually off of Lefty's. That was some leftover stock from that. And then here's some leftover tube from my little boy's side-by-side Ghost. So pretty cheap. And then this whole thing, it works. It worked really well. The one thing I did have to buy specifically for this is the blower. There is a link for this in the description below, as well as a link for all of the other tools that you saw me use in my shop to build this thing. There's also a link for the Klutch spool gun welder, which I'll tell you what, I am totally impressed by. I did have that one little issue where I figured out I had to put the little washer in here, just give a little bit of spacer to let that wheel, the spool spin a little more freely. Then after that, it kind of really started laying down some nice welds. This one I thought was suspect. That's what it was doing with basically the spool getting hung up. And then after it wasn't, you know, this weld right here, I'm not the best MIG welder in the world, but I would basically put that weld anywhere, and I thought it looked really good. I'm super happy with this welder. I think it does just as well as any of my Millers or my Vulcan Omni Pro over there. It's just a great welder. I'm super impressed by that. And for the price point, about $349 as of the filming of this video, man, you just really can't beat the price to have something with a spool gun that can also weld aluminum. So a really impressive tool, and I think also really fun project. So hopefully you got something out of that, and the concept works. You can build them however you want. Just got some oil and some forced air and somewhere to kind of cook the oil off, and it works really well. Well, I really do like making videos about welders, especially considering this channel, welders that fit inside just about anybody's budget. And I think that Northern Tools hit it out of the ballpark with this one. If you like this video, here's another one I think that you'll like also. Anyways, hopefully we earned your subscribe today, and we'll see you next week. Take care of yourself.